For 4 years, my family called me the daughter who vanished. Then a nurse 3 states away typed my blood type into a system built to find exact matches for a baby who wasn't going to make it through the week, and my name came up. That's how my family found me again. Not love, a blood bank algorithm. By the end of this, you'll know why I let it. Welcome back to the channel where quiet people finally stop being quiet. If stories about boundaries and the families who test them hit close to home, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and stick around, because this one earns it. My name's Renata Calloway. Everyone calls me Ren. I'm 36, and I run the night shift in a Level ILY NICU in Charleston, South Carolina, in a hospital with a chapel nobody uses and vending machines everybody does. I have a daughter named Sadie. She's 4. She believes the moon follows our car on purpose and argues about it like a defense attorney. Our front door is the color of sea glass. Not blue, not green, somewhere honest in between. I painted it the week the lease became a mortgage, and I remember standing back afterward thinking, nobody is walking through this door who didn't earn an invitation. For 4 years, nobody from Tulsa did. That wasn't an accident. My family has a different word for it, though. They call it disappearing. Here's what I've learned about that word. It's a word for people who want credit for losing you without ever admitting they let go first. It started at my engagement party, 10 years ago, in my mother's dining room in Tulsa. I was 26. I'd just gotten engaged to a man named Theo Marsh, a furniture restorer with sawdust permanently ground into his knuckles. My mother, Deborah, threw us a party. Pot roast, her good tablecloth, a cake with both our names spelled right, which for my family was basically a miracle. Halfway through dinner, she stood up with a card in her hand, cream-colored envelope, my name on the front in her church bulletin handwriting. I thought it was a card. It was a request. Just a little something toward the family, she said, patting my hand, smiling at the room like she was being generous. You're getting married. You're stable now. It's time you helped carry this family the way we carried you. Nobody at that table had carried much of anything for me except tuition I paid myself in loans. But 26-year-old me heard stable and carry and felt something warm and dangerous, pride mistaken for obligation. I wrote the first check that week. I want you to remember that word, stable. My mother used it like a diagnosis. Once she'd decided I was stable, my exhaustion stopped counting as real. By year 2, it wasn't a check anymore. It was a recurring Venmo request labeled, every single month, the same 3 words, family fund, please. $1,400 a month, most months. More when there was a situation, and there was always a situation. A roof, a transmission, my little brother Miles's car insurance. Christmas came with its own envelope on top, like a service fee. I kept a spreadsheet, not because I wanted the money back, because numbers were the only thing in my family that didn't have a hidden meaning attached. Words like help and just this once had learned to lie. Numbers hadn't figured out how yet. By year 4, a contractor's photo my brother texted me showed a tarp still stapled to our parents' roof. A full year after I'd paid $4,000 to have it replaced. I told myself contractors were slow. I told myself a lot of things, because asking the real question felt more expensive than paying it. Theo proposed with no ring. He handed me a small wooden bird instead, a wren, carved from walnut, small enough to close your fist around. A ring just says yes, he told me. This says I built something for you, with my own hands, and I'll keep doing it till I'm out of hands. I met my family exactly once with him beside me. My mother asked what he charged per hour before she asked his middle name. On the drive home, he laughed it off. Your mom sure loves a spreadsheet, he said. He had no idea how right that was. I hadn't told him yet. I hadn't let myself add it up. That night, my mother texted just me. He seems steady. Also, Small favor this month, don't mention it to your father. My engagement, it turned out, came with a processing fee. I paid it. For years, I always paid it. Then came a flu season that gutted my unit, back-to-back doubles, and one Sunday I slept through the alarm for the first time in my adult life. The transfer went out 2 days late. My mother called at 7 the next morning. She didn't yell, yelling I could have survived. Her voice was flat, accounting department flat. You don't get to be tired right now, Renata. We are this close to losing everything, and you decide now is when you rest? I stood in my kitchen in scrubs I'd slept in and apologized twice. She accepted once. Here's the part that still humbles me. I spent the whole drive to work that morning agreeing with her, planning backup alarms. 30 years old, engineering my own sleep schedule around someone else's guilt. It would take a catastrophe to put the phone down for good. Life had one scheduled. It was a Thursday in October. Theo was restoring cabinetry in a client's garage workshop, a space the landlord had been cited twice for faulty wiring and never fixed. A breaker arced behind drywall at 11 at night. The fire moved faster than the exits did. Theo Marsh, 32, was gone before I finished my shift. 9 of his fellow craftsmen carried his casket, sawdust still under their nails. My family sent a card signed, "The Callaways," in my aunt's handwriting, which meant my mother had delegated even the grief. 4 days after the funeral, my mother texted, "So sorry, honey. Will the transfer still go out on time given everything?" I was standing in Theo's closet holding a flannel shirt that still smelled like cedar when I read it. I sent the money anyway. Grief makes you obedient before it makes you anything else. 2 weeks later, I fainted at the nurse's station. A friend walked me to a drugstore. 2 lines, in a fluorescent bathroom, at 31 years old, 5 months pregnant according to an ultrasound I hadn't known to expect. I planned the call to my mother like a medication order. Exact. No surprises. Theo died. I'm pregnant. I have to stop sending money. My blood pressure is dangerous, and I need to keep every dollar for this baby. I led with the boundary. I never got past it. After everything we've sacrificed, she said, voice climbing. This is who you are now? Dial tone. I called my father next. I heard his garage radio in the background. I said, "Dad, something's happened. I need—" "Don't upset your mother," he said, and hung up. Every road in that family ran through my mother, and she had just closed the last one. I set the phone face down on the counter. I did not pick it back up for 4 years. If you've ever been the emergency fund in your own family, the one they call on the first of the month and forget the rest of the year, tell me where you're watching from. It helps to know none of us were as alone as they made us feel. Here's the part I didn't witness, but pieced together later. 2 months after that call, my aunt posted on Facebook, praying for my niece through such a hard season. Some children forget where they came from. No name, none needed. At coffee hour, when someone asked where I'd gotten to, my mother looked at her shoes, let the silence stretch until it curdled, and said, "We don't really know anymore." Every word of that sentence was technically true. She didn't know, because she'd hung up before knowing was possible. By the next Sunday, someone in the choir was using the word disappeared, and my mother didn't correct her. A rumor that goes uncorrected in a small church becomes doctrine by Christmas. While I was learning what swollen ankles meant alone in a nursery I built myself, my mother was teaching 200 people that I had vanished. Sadie was born early, furious, 6 pounds of black hair and 0 patience. My friend Priya cut the cord, because someone who loved us should. I moved to Charleston, painted the door sea glass, learned to make pancakes shaped like alarming dinosaurs. Every December I sent exactly 1 card north, to my father's mother Ruth, the only Callaway who'd ever preferred a hard truth to a smooth one. No return demands, just a photo and an address. I never knew if she read them. 4 years passed like that. Quiet, deliberate. I stopped flinching every time my phone lit up on the first of the month. I thought that peace was something you got to keep. I was wrong. Peace, it turns out, is just the part of the story between reveals. My brother Miles's daughter was born 10 weeks early, in a hospital in Nashville, with a blood disorder that needed a very specific, very rare donor match. Not just type, a rare antigen combination most donor banks don't even screen for by default. Our hospital network runs a regional registry. I'd been on it for 6 years, quietly, because that's what NICU nurses do. The lab flagged a match 3 states away, attached to my legal name, attached to a Charleston address nobody in my family had. Miles called the number on the file before anyone thought to ask whether they should. I was charting at 2 in the morning when my phone rang from an Oklahoma number I didn't recognize. Ren, a voice I hadn't heard in 4 years, cracked in a way I'd never heard it crack. It's Miles. God, I don't even know how to ask you this. My daughter needs blood only you can give her. I didn't even know you were alive until an hour ago. I sat down on a supply room stool. 4 years of silence, and the door back in was a dying infant. Send me everything, I said, because whatever my family was, I am, above everything else, someone who does not let a baby die to make a point. I flew to Nashville that morning. I did not call my mother. Miles met me outside the NICU doors, 4 years older around the eyes. He said my name, then looked past my shoulder at the photo I still keep as my phone's lock screen. Theo, laughing, sawdust in his hair, and behind him, just visible, a hospital bassinet with Sadie Marsh on the card. Miles went very still. You had a baby, he said. It wasn't a question. Ren, who's the father? Where? Why didn't anyone? He died, I said, 6 weeks before I told our mother, and about 4 minutes before she stopped speaking to me for it. Miles didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he did something no Calloway had done to me in a decade. He asked, what was his name? I told him everything, in a hospital hallway, while machines down the hall kept his daughter alive on my blood type. By the time I landed back in Charleston 2 days later, my mother had already gotten the story from Miles secondhand and rewritten it before it left her mouth. She called that night, crying before I said hello. My baby had a baby, she kept saying. Like grief and pride were the same weather system. Then the pivot. I could hear it. A gear change mid-sentence. Come to Ruth's 90th next month. The whole family's coming. I'll tell everyone the truth was just complicated. That you were protecting yourself after a loss. Nobody has to know about the money, sweetheart. This can be a homecoming. Notice what that sentence did. It diagnosed me with grief I never denied having, in order to bury the one thing I actually needed acknowledged. She wasn't inviting her daughter home. She was auditioning me for a supporting role in her redemption story. I'll think about it, I said, and I meant it, just not in the way she hoped. 2 nights later, my phone rang with a Tulsa number I did know. Ruth. 80 years old, sharp as a blade that's been sharpened too many times to dull again. I got every card you ever sent me, she said, no hello. Kept them in my recipe box, under the index cards, where your mother never thought to look, until she did, this spring, and read every single one, and put them back like she hadn't. I sat down on my kitchen floor. She's known where I was? She's known for months, Ruth said. She needed you missing more than she needed you found. Missing doesn't argue back. I didn't go to a church homecoming. I went to Ruth's 90th birthday, at a rented hall in Tulsa, because 90 doesn't wait for anyone's storyline to resolve on schedule. I brought Sadie. I brought Theo's Ren, small enough to fit in my coat pocket. I did not bring a spreadsheet. I was done speaking my mother's language. The hall held about 60 people, a banner, a cake with Ruth's name spelled right. And my mother, in blue, holding a card and a microphone she'd clearly requested in advance for a toast that was never going to be about her mother-in-law. She found me in the crowd, handed me the mic like a communion plate. "Everyone," she said, eyes already glistening on cue, "my daughter has come home to us. After everything, God brought her back." 60 faces turned toward me. My father stood at the back wall, cap in his hands, the way he stands at things he can't fix. I didn't take the microphone. I stood up on my own volume. "I didn't disappear," I said. "I stopped paying." In this family, for 6 years, those were treated like the same thing. You could hear the ceiling fans. $112,000. That's not an estimate. I kept every transfer because numbers were the one thing in this family that never lied to me. The year everyone here calls when Renata vanished, I buried the man I was going to marry and delivered our daughter alone in a hospital 3 states from anyone who shared my blood. Nobody called. One phone call would have found me. I turned to my mother. "I was allowed to be tired," I said. "Just never around you." Her hand shook around the microphone. "How dare you," she said, and the word cracked down the middle. Too loud, too raw for a room built for toasts, not trials. I didn't raise my voice once. I'd spent 10 years learning to stay calm in the worst 5 minutes of strangers' lives. She'd spent 10 years learning to perform for an audience. Only one of those skills survives when the script runs out. I watched the room split in real time. Some faces softened toward me. Some hardened. The faces, I noticed, of people whose transmissions and security deposits I'd once quietly funded. That's the part nobody warns you about. The truth doesn't convince everyone. It just stops the lie from being unanimous. I walked to Ruth, put Sadie's small hand into her shaking one. "Ruth, this is Sadie. She's the reason I still believe in family, just not the version I grew up in." Ruth's face did something I'll never forget doing to a face that old. As I passed my mother on the way out, she said one thing, quiet, mic lowered, meant only for me. Everything I did for this family, and God help me, I believed she believed it. "Being needed was never the same as being loved, Mom," I said. "I hope somebody loves you for free someday." Miles caught me in the parking lot before I reached the car, tie loose, out of breath, his daughter's hospital bracelet still in his pocket like a ticket stub. He didn't defend our mother, not once. He just asked, "Can I come see my niece?" No strings. "Just an uncle. Sundays," I said. "Bring nothing but yourself." His daughter came off the ventilator 9 days later, my blood still doing its quiet work in her small body. Some debts, it turns out, are worth paying. The ones you choose, freely, with nothing owed back. Ruth visits every other month now. She's teaching Sadie to carve, badly, with Theo's old tools. My mother sent one letter, 3 pages, no apology anywhere in a load-bearing sentence. I read it once and put it in a drawer. It hurt less than I'd budgeted for. Not because it stopped hurting, because the wound finally stopped being load-bearing. The door's still sea glass. Sadie touched up the bottom corner herself last spring, more paint on her nose than the wood. If you've ever paid to stay inside somebody else's story, walk out and go write your own. The people who actually love you will read every page for free. That's my story. 4 years of silence, 1 blood match, and 90 seconds at a birthday party that finally told the truth. If this hit close to home, tell me in the comments what your version of the family fund looked like, and if someone in your life needs to hear this, send it to them. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.